guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about Zionism. What in the world is Zionism? I honestly didn't know what it was. I kind of had an idea, but I wasn't sure. Now I knew that Zion was an ancient name for Jerusalem. And I know that people online have called me a Zionist because of my beliefs in a very derogatory way. But I thought, what does it actually mean? So I looked it up. And unfortunately, there's a lot of definitions, and a lot of people mean a lot of different things when they say it. But this seems to convey the consensus. Zionism is a nationalistic and political movement that supports the establishment and continued existence of a Jewish homeland in the ancestral land of Israel. So basically, if you support Israel continuing to exist and defend themselves and continuing to live where they're living, as the state of Israel, apparently you're a Zionist. And so, am I for Israel continuing to be a state? Yes. Am I against chants from leftists on college campuses like from the river to the sea or from jihadists? Yes, I'm against those chants. So I guess I'm a Zionist. And if that's truly what people are talking about when they say Zionist, then I'm 1,000% a proud Zionist. Now, I'm a Christian and a proud American, and those things are way more important to me than being a Zionist. But I'm definitely not against Zionism. If I was against Zionism, that would mean I would want an Arab or Muslim invader to kill or displace the Israelis, and I do not want that. Muslims and Jews both claim this land, and especially Jerusalem. Think about this. The Dome of the Rock, which is that mosque that's in Jerusalem, it sits on top of the old Temple Mount. Well, that should tell you that the Temple Mount was there first, and Israel obviously was there first. Islam didn't come about till like 600 AD, and of course, you can trace Judaism back to like 1500 BC. Unless you can prove a direct descendance to the Canaanites in the Bible that were there before God sent Abraham there, I mean, do you really have a claim here? But regardless on what your thoughts on that, the occupation, how it happened, they've been there since 1948. Okay, we're talking, 75, 80 years of them being there. At what point are you going to let this go? Did you know there are 48 countries in the world that are predominantly Muslim? How many countries in the world do you think are predominantly Jewish? 1, Israel. Did you know there are 15 million Jews in the entire world, which is about 0.2% of the world's population? 15 million. How many Muslims do you think there are in the world? About 2 billion with a B, billion. It makes sense why Israel would cherish and want our support here in America so much. They're like living in a bad neighborhood where everybody hates them, and they want to make sure they have a good relationship with the cops. That's kind of what America is, it's the cops. And without American support, they would be completely surrounded. Jesus was a Jew. The 12 disciples were Jews. 64 of the 66 books in the Bible were written by Jews. Now, as a Christian, I understand that Israel did not accept Christ. But God has a plan to bring them back. And that's not just in the Old Testament, that's in the New Testament. Read Romans chapter 11. God has a plan to bring them back. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about criticizing Israel's government. Okay, I'm talking about people who are wanting Israel to be removed from the Middle East or maybe from existence. Those would be people who are anti-Zionist. Even taking out the Bible, why would I support Israel? Well, they're just simply our Western ally in the region. They share our Western culture. What is Western culture? It is heavily inspired by Judeo-Christian beliefs, but it's much more than that. Individualism and personal liberty are highlighted, spawning ideas like liberalism and libertarianism. Secularism is highlighted, spawning a separation of church and state. Rational thinking and scientific inquiry are championed. Great institutions are championed like representative democracy and capitalism. Meritocracy is used instead of classes or races being favored. Rule of law and human rights as well are emphasized. What do jihadists, left-wing radicals, and right-wing white supremacists all have in common? Jihadists like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, Boko Haram in Africa that's killing Christians currently. Left-wing radicals like the people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder and mock his poor widow. And then right-wing, white supremacists and anti-Semites like Nick Fuentes, who are out there saying Team Hitler and acting like being a Nazi is a cool, hip thing when the Nazis were responsible for 6 million Jews being massacred. What do all three of those groups have in common? Now, you might say nothing. Those three groups have absolutely nothing in common. Well, they do. They hate Israel, and they hate Jews. That tells me that whatever's going on here is spiritual, and that tells me that those evil groups are against God. And I'm going to be on the side of God. Now, those groups that I just called evil, I'll be praying for them. I don't wish bad upon them. I don't wish destruction upon them. I want them to repent. And a lot of them, especially those white supremacists on the right, consider themselves Christians, but they really need to learn about what Christ actually preached and taught. And I understand that I'm kind of in the minority on the internet on this topic, but despite how small my side becomes and how large the opposition voice grows, I will continue to stand for what I believe is right. I'll be David against Goliath.